Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the R&D Podcast. I am your host, Rachel.
And I'm Delia.
In this episode, we're going to be talking about the impacts of substance abuse and alcoholism, drugs, etc. in a relationship. Let's get into it.
Let's go. Yes. You know what? When it comes to substance abuse, I think a lot of the time we as women, when we have a partner that likes to drink a lot, possibly, and then that he gets a certain way, or if he drinks vodka, he's this. If he drinks tequila, he's that. If he does this, he's that. And we will excuse bad behavior, by the way, where we would say something like, you know what, it's because he was drinking. He normally doesn't act like that, but because he's drinking, this is what's going on. And I really believe that if someone is abusing alcohol to a point where it's becoming, a problem, where they're now becoming violent, or now they want to fight with random people, I think that you need to really sit down with your partner and say, hey, what's going on? Like, why do you have the need to drink and then get, alcoholic?
I think that really, I grew up in a household where, I had a parent who had an alcohol issue. And I had lots of conversations, it was my dad, and I had lots of conversations with him years after when he was more sober and everything. And really the trouble is not once they're jerks, once the alcohol makes them a mean drunk, it's when they don't know how to go have fun without actually drinking.
Yes.
So that's where the alcoholism shows up. And so it takes years for it to be, oh, now he's a mean drunk, or she's a mean drunk, right? Or, oh my God, now she's always drunk. It always starts off with, can you go have a good time without drinking? And it's a difficult thing because obviously it's like food. Everywhere you go, someone's offering you a plate of food, So alcohol is everywhere.
I know.
Go to parties. It's like, oh, everywhere. Hey, what do you want to drink? It's everywhere.
Yeah, and it's like anything, right? You go to dinner and it's like, what's everyone drinking? And everyone's having a cocktail. And I know that the mocktails are very popular, which they're very fancy, foofy drinks, like they would be an alcoholic beverage. But, also on the flip side of substance abuse, because this is what we're talking about, is what I've seen also is that, you're with a bunch of people, you're partying, you're having a great time, and then here comes the white powder. And, that changes people a lot. And, I have to share this with you. Like, I've been in relationships. I've been in a few relationships where you see the person and then they kind of switch on you and you're like, what's going on? So you're under the impression that it's the alcohol that's taking the effect. But in reality,
you're like,
they went to the
early.
They went to the restroom and they did, and you don't really know when it's going to happen or when it's not going to happen. And unless you're in that sphere that everyone's doing it, you're doing it too, then you'll know. But otherwise, I think that, that's just a combination. It's a good combination for disaster, by the way.
It's so true. If you are a person who's chosen a sober life, a predominantly sober life, right? Meaning you might only drink socially here and there. Let me tell you, a lot of things will stand out and you might feel like you don't quite fit in and it might feel awkward. But I think that, witnessing someone in your life that they don't know how to have a good time or loosen up without drinking, I can see as a partner that you go, oh, just let him, we're having a good time. Like, I'll have a drink. Look at, he's finally like laughing. He's finally like just letting loose, or, cutting it up on the dance floor. Maybe your partner is more of like a stick in the mud normally. But yet when he has a few drinks, he's so much fun. And so I could see how really simply, right, that can turn bad, but it starts off usually really good and having a good time. So I think that it could also be something that's real positive in people's life, believe it or not, because I think couples can have a lot of fun.
I agree.
And things like that. I don't know about the drugs part, but like the drinking part, it can be very fun and social and everything. But like you said, once it goes past a certain point, or maybe they can't be intimate anymore because they drink too much, or they're violent, or they're hitting on your best friend, or they're hitting on their own like family member or something kind of weird because they just went too far. And one little example, like the family member, is I'll never forget one Valentine's Day. It was a bunch of couples at my in-laws, and my husband at the time, he was like holding up the wall with like a cousin who was like standing there, and everybody was laughing about it though, because they were like, oh, he's so drunk, he doesn't even realize that he's doing that with her. So they thought it was funny. And of course I'm like, oh yeah, it's like
you're
so
like
weird.
You do not
but
see
I was
the humor
watching
in
like
it.
We're all just standing here gonna watch this. So like the next day I was like,
what's up with that?
Did you know that? So it was like a laughing moment for everybody, but I saw it like, if we were not all here, granted she wouldn't have done anything else, but I'm saying like in any other environment, if he didn't have witnesses, and it wasn't like family or whatever, he's somewhere else, then what does that mean?
Yeah, what does that mean? I mean, I think it's important. There's a couple of things to this. Okay, so if you don't drink, then everyone's kind of pressuring you to drink, by the way. Unless you say, you know what, I've chosen to take a pause. Because I've done that before. I mean, there was a moment there where I didn't drink for about 1.5 years. And that was something that I had chosen just because I started to realize that I was kind of getting out of hand. And it wasn't something that I thought, oh, this is going to be long term. It was just going to be temporary.
Yeah.
And then you feel the pressure of people trying to make you drink. So there's that part. Yeah. So there's that part. And then the second part to that is the people that know they have issues, that they're going to black out, that they might take their clothes off and go on top of a table, that they might get violent and want to fight somebody, that they're going to get in someone's face, and they know that they're going to put everyone at danger, by the way, because that happens too. If you're a person that's very confrontational and violent and you're drinking and you're with a group of people, guess what? That person's going to get you in trouble because you're not going to let someone beat them up if they're freaking drunk and acting belligerent. And you're going to stand up for your friend or your family member. So I think it's really important to figure out who the people that you're surrounded with and what happens when they drink. Because the last thing I want, I'm not going to lie to you, is to be in a situation where he's starting something with someone and now I got to jump in. Or now, the guy's got to jump in and now it's a whole fight. And so you have to really take into consideration what's happening. Like, is this person just so drunk and belligerent that he doesn't even remember what he did? I mean, oftentimes you see when people drink and drive, they kill like a whole family and they don't even know they did that, and they're going to spend the rest of their lives in jail. I mean, talk about traumatic, life-changing experiences. So you got to take into consideration, what kind of drunk am I? Because we, when you hear the stories, like, I don't remember doing that. Because, I think for the most part, I'm coherent and I know what's happening, but there's little things that happen that you're like, I don't really remember doing that.
I think that, when I would hear those stories of like, oh my God, you're not going to believe what happened. I had no idea what I was doing. I'm of the school of thought that you know what you're doing, you just care less.
You do believe that? Because there's people that actually, there's people that, I guess, there are people supposedly that literally black out. Yeah, so, but I do believe with what you're saying that they're like, they probably just going to take that and cash it at the bank, right?
I think it depends. If they went and did something, let's just say they cheated on you, right? And like seconds later, they're literally mouth open, snoring, passed out, don't even care that they're still with no clothes or whatever. Like, you could argue that person was like literally just
drunk,
hammered, right?
Yeah.
But if it wasn't the case and they were like, all right, and they still made it home and all this kind of stuff, then you kind of go, okay, they knew what they were doing, they just didn't care. Because your inhibitions go away, you guys. Like, I don't care what a goody two shoes you might be. Like, your inhibitions go, the volume gets turned all the way down on that.
Yeah.
And we always talk about, even, like with us or like myself, I used to really, really enjoy it. So when people invite me now and they go, come on, it's not, and I say no, and they go, God, you really don't like it? I say no, it's because I like it so much that I know I can't go down that route because I have way too many things going on in my life that I want to achieve or this or experience or whatever, and it doesn't align with you. It doesn't align with you. So you have to also just be super self-aware, even about your own situation, your own handling of it. But I think people get very defensive, by the way. There was somebody that I really cared about, and I saw that we were kind of both going down a tough path with that and the partying and stuff. And I was like, hey, we should make a pact where we like kind of give it up. Like, let's give it up and let's see how long we can go and everything. And this person got pretty offended and didn't talk to me for like 3 weeks.
It's like that meme. It's like, you said we're breaking up. Yeah. It's like, I said I didn't want to drink. Yeah, and it's like, no, exactly. You want to break up with me. Yeah.
So it was something like that. Yeah. And then I've chosen a predominantly sober life. And it's not easy though, because it's so much fun. To go out and drink and have lots of drinks and everything. So I think that when you're in a relationship, one of the things that's in the role, right, of each of you is to call each other out, to guide each other, to bring out the best in each other. And if
like
you
mayonnaise,
guys,
baby.
best food,
bring out the best in you.
But if you guys are heading down a path that seems like, wow, we're really partying a lot, or we're getting drunker and drunker and drunker every time, or we're getting in more and more conflicts and arguments every time.
Yeah, you
like, let's pull back a little bit and let's assess.
Have you heard? And this is something that was brought to my attention, not that long ago, because obviously, I started kind of drinking, dabbling with drinking since I was young. My parents actually let me drink, because they didn't want it to be taboo in my life. So anyway, recently, a few years back, I heard, that drinking is called, spirits. Like, it's
Yes.
spirits, so that's the reason
Yes.
why they say that sometimes you're going to get a different person or a different personality depending
Yes.
on their spirit in when it comes to consumption of alcohol. And so when I heard that, I thought, oh, that makes sense, if you really think about it, because sometimes you see people that drank a lot and you're like, that wasn't them. It's like they transformed themselves. It's like, that wasn't the person I know.
The look in their eyes
It's this look
like,
in their eyes. It's like
yes.
the glare, the evil, whatever it is. And so, it's one of those things that's like the ringing of the bell that you can't unring.
Yeah.
And so when I heard that, it was like this aha moment for me, because I'm like, it makes sense, spirits.
Yeah.
And so you see certain people's spirit change, as in, they become more aggro, more angry, or more loving. There's people like
or
my
more
dad,
promiscuous,
or people start crying. Like my dad, he's like an
emotional
emotional
drinker.
drunk.
Yeah.
And sometimes, they say in Spanish, los borrachos y los niños dicen la verdad.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
drunks and kids say the truth.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes, if you're harvesting a lot of emotion and all of a sudden you're drunk and you're like, you know what, as a matter of fact, you're a blah 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 bitch, you're like, whoa, is that what you really think about me? And it's like, because the reality comes out.
Yeah.
And it's the spirit of, you know what, I'm drinking this true elixir and I'm going to talk about this. And so I think that if you're one of those people that people have to sit with you and kind of take you out on the sidelines to be like, hey, what's up? I think that you really need to take that into consideration and say, what do I have to do to have fun, but know when to stop? Because the thing about that is, it's not that you're drinking. It's like, do you know when to stop?
Yeah.
Like, do I know, okay, this is my limit because I'm feeling this way. Can you stop yourself? That's $1 million question.
So I used to have this conversation with my sons, because obviously we're Mexican, so I knew that they were being raised around a lot of drinkers and a lot of shindiggers, and anytime we went to this cousin's house or this brother-in-law's house or this person's house, it was always like the kids running around and everybody's drinking, and the music and card playing and all that kind of stuff. And so when they started, obviously dabbling in that and everything, I wanted them to know, like, your body gives you signals.
Yeah.
So like I said, I realized for me, when the tip of my nose goes numb,
Ooh,
that
I never heard that.
For me,
wow,
we all have our little things. You have to find your things. So the tip of my nose goes numb, and so if I then have more drinks after that, it is hold on tight, because it's about to get interesting.
Going on right.
So I will sometimes have my drinks, and I'll go like this. And then I'll know, like,
so people won't think like you went to the restroom.
They won't really know. And so I'll tell the
kidding.
bartender or whatever. It just depends. Or if I'm at a party, there's like the cups. I'll just get the apple juice. And I really think, though, if you are hosting a party and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna host a party and everybody's gonna drink and they're gonna expect me to drink and everything, like, literally have the apple juice somewhere nearby. And just go ahead and pour it into that cup that looks like it's okay. No one's going to question it, because it's unfortunate that even if you tell people, like Delia was saying, hey, I'm cutting back, for a month or Lent or whatever.
Stop.
Come on, you're fine. The peer pressure is insane.
Yeah. So, but I will say though, it's so funny that you're saying that, because I always give it up for Lent, right? Lent season is usually like around February, March. And let me tell you, it's for 40 days. The minute I say, no, I gave it up for Lent, I promise you no one challenges it usually. No, it's really weird. No one challenges it. It's like, no, I gave it up for Lent, and everyone's like, oh, okay. Like, they leave me alone. And it's like, in other words, I'm giving it. Exactly. All the Catholics that are fornicating and they're doing all the things they're not supposed to do, but they gave it up for for Lent season. And so they're like, oh, okay, and that's always my thing. And, usually I'll extend it till I can. I'm like, you know what? I don't really need to drink. And so for me, I will say that in the past, what I've noticed is that if I start to slur, I then know, okay, that's my cue. I'm slurring. It doesn't make sense. I'm not connecting the dots. And so all of a sudden, I think that my thing is I get quiet and I sit myself, off to the side, and then I have this whole inner dialogue, and that inner dialogue, this person's mean. It's like, you idiot, you got too drunk, you got to sit down now. But some people don't have that, and there's moments too where I kind of push it to the limit a little bit, and then I'm like, damn, how embarrassing I did that, or how embarrassing I said that. And usually, most people can be coherent. Some people use that as an excuse. Some people are like, sorry, baby, I was drunk and my whole spirit came in.
The Holy Spirit
came in. And so guess what? What had happened was, exactly.
I know that I've given people this advice again because, my dad had that issue. So many people in my family have that issue. And one of the things is like, if you can get yourself to like drink water or an electrolyte in between, they'll always say, oh, like you're not going to have a hangover, right? But also you're not going to get as drunk because it has a lot to do with like the dehydration and like your liver.
So true.
Like your organs, like study it, right? And I'm not saying, oh, learn how to drink a lot at a party, right. But when you can put these little things in between, you're at least not going to do things that you regret. Right. You can still catch a buzz, you can still get loose and have fun, but then you're not going to like ruin your marriage or ruin your life over it.
Yeah.
And so I think I can tell you that there was something that had happened really big in my one of my son's lives, and regarding alcohol, that someone did to him, literally risked his life. Like he was like little and was going to lose his life. Oh, no. And this person was drunk, and then the next day when everything was kind of coming out, and you got to think my son was little, like he couldn't even really like talk because he was so traumatized, and we weren't sure if he was going to need therapy. It was all these things. And this person had no idea what they had done. When you were talking about the blacking out, they had little bits and pieces, like an inkling that they were in the area or whatever, but like they had no idea. So all they could say was, I'm so sorry. Like, oh, I'm so sorry that you, but they cannot truly grasp the gravity of what they have done. So when you're a wife and you're like mad at your husband the next day, right, because of what he did and everything, and he's like, gosh, calm down, like it's
not that big of a deal.
Yeah, I didn't mean it. Like they understand that you're arguing with a ghost, like you're arguing with someone that, like with amnesia, like someone that doesn't understand the gravity of what that felt like to you and what they have done, because they were just they were under the influence.
Going with the flow.
They were under the influence.
Oh man, but I definitely think that if you have family members that are kind of pulling you to the side and saying, hey, this is becoming an issue, I mean, really take those things into consideration. And I think that oftentimes it's the people that are around our inner circles that are influencing us, right? And I hate to say that people can influence you like that, but unfortunately, if you're in an environment where there's a lot of drinking that's going to happen, more than likely you're going to want to get into that environment also. So if you feel that this is an issue, then you really need to, assess the situation and say, what, do I really need to put myself in an environment where there's going to be a lot of drinking and I know how I get? And I also think that people need to be respectful should you say, what, I'm opting not to drink. That's just an option of mine. And, once, like, for instance, with me, once Lent season was over, then people are like, well, Lent season's over. Just, okay, give it up. And so then the pressure starts coming on, and I think that there's nothing worse than feeling pressured. And for me, I'm like, no, I just don't want to drink. Like, that's my decision. Leave me alone. Yeah. And so I think that you shouldn't feel pressured, and no one should be pressuring you. I mean, come on, we're all adults. It's like,
you should be willing to hurt some feelings. If they're willing to cross your boundaries. I'm going to jump really quick from alcohol to literally like pre-workouts and steroids and stuff like that, because I was married for a long time to someone who was very into the fitness industry and everything, and then my sons became really into it. So like my sons came in like this pre-workout era, and when I tell you energy drinks, pre-workout are like, those two separate things are so insane. If you are watching this and you have an energy drink, let's just say, and like 4 hours later you just find yourself so freaking irritated with your partner, your children, you're like, oh, like and start to watch those patterns. You're coming down from the energy drink, and it is a huge problem. And I've talked to other women about it, and they're like, yes, he keeps saying it's just me, I'm crazy, but like, no, it's every time he drinks this drink. The other thing is the pre-workout. I witnessed that with my sons. My sons played sports. They would take pre-workout, and it was horrendous. Not while it was activated, but on the come downs, like hours later, hours, and it was so bad. And so I always go, in my house, no pre-workout, no energy drinks. And if I ever do see my ex kind of coming around and he has an energy drink in his hand, I tell my son, have fun, good luck, and pray, man.
Prayers on you.
Because that's, because the attitude, and the person that's experiencing it has no idea that they're just being a royal freaking, you know what. Yeah, they have no idea. Yeah. And so it's a real thing. And then steroids, we used to know a lot of people in the fitness industry, and the steroids was like a huge issue because you got the rage, right, that comes with it and stuff. But the people that are experiencing it, they don't realize the pattern in themselves, and they don't connect the dots that, like, as a woman, maybe you're being like very moody and you don't know what's going on, it could be your pre-workout. It could be your supplements. It could be that coffee you're having, energy drink, the drops you're putting in it. You got to also look to those things.
I agree.
And start to like log
what it is.
Like when you start to lose your temper and do like, what did you take? What did you drink? You know, because
steroids is a big deal actually. Because you know, I've heard of stories where people actually will lose their ish and break things and rip things apart and literally feel like they're like the Incredible Hulk and they do the whole thing. They think they're like, you know, my shirt over here. But, you know, and I think that it's important for you to kind of, you know, gauge that. Is your partner getting really big and ripped and buff? Like, because sometimes, you know, it takes just a little microdosing and you think it's nothing. And then all of a sudden you see the shift and the change and you're like, what's going on with him? Why is he being this way? And even for women, by the way, because women also do roids. And oftentimes you don't really know what it is. And so, you know, if there's a significant mood change, you know, they might be cycling on or off depending on where they're at as far as, you know, their intake. And I think, you know, you gotta pay attention to the little shifts in their personality, whether that's with alcohol. Sometimes, you know, I've seen in Orange County specifically, by the way, with what we're talking about, substance abuse. I saw this big letter that you know where the Amber Alerts come on. Yeah. So for the freeway, for all the alerts that come on, it says Xanax is also a drug or something like that. Like you can get a DUI if you're on Xanax. So literally, you know, because in OC, you know, respectfully,
everywhere,
it seems
LA,
like
everywhere.
Yeah, it just seems like it's like
candy.
It's like the trending. Yeah. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a drug, but it is, I guess, because it does make you feel a little loopy, and you shouldn't be driving when you're taking Xanax. So it literally on the freeway had
we're in Southern California. If it's Xanax, Adderall, or cocaine, like it obviously alcohol, it's just everywhere, and it's very recreational. It's very casual.
It's very
and people do it. And I'll never forget. I had a thing. I was working at a magazine, and I was in a high-rise building, and I went, oh my God, I don't know. I feel like flustered for some reason after a meeting that I held. Yeah. And like 4 ladies opened their purse and go, here, and then 3 of them had the white one, and the one had the blue, and they all went, oh, where'd you get the blues at? Like, you want to trade? Like, I'll give you 2 of my whites for your blue. And I had never even seen one in person.
You're like,
and I was like, what is that? I am not taking this. And so it's very normal. Like, I mean, I have family, friends, like, you know, people that I worked with, and it seems very normal to just be like, boom, with the Xanax.
Yeah. I mean, I've never taken a Xanax, so I have no idea. But I know that I saw that, and I was like, oh snap! Like this must be a huge thing if people are driving and they're on Xanax. You know, it's like literally driving under the influence. So
and being around someone that's on that all the time, by the way, it's almost like a little bit of a like a glitch in the matrix. Like you can have such a good time with them, a great conversation, make plans. You could strategize, say, hey, we should start a business together. And like you'll see them 2 weeks later when maybe they're not on that or whatever, and they're like, what? And they seem like they don't even know what you're talking about. And it used to happen all the time in the office. Like, there's a little disconnect that's happening. It's a little zombie,
glitch in the matrix, for
action
sure.
going on.
But I definitely think that, you know what, if you feel someone's going down the path of alcoholism, or, you know, maybe they're taking too many pills, or maybe they're doing too much, you know, drugs and all the things, like you got to really tap into that person. Because I think that if you chose a partner and you start to see that they're drifting away, you got to pull them back and say, hey, what do we have to do to have you, you know, come out of this? Like, if that means that you have to lay back on the drinking, or you don't drink at all because you have to support your partner, then you do that. I think that there's nothing worse than knowing, like, oh man, we're gonna go to this event and I don't know what I'm gonna get. Because oftentimes, you know, these people are like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. You might get the really happy version of him. You might get the freaking aggro version of him. You might get the version of him where he wants to fight everybody. You might get the freaking, you know, sloppy whole version of him where he's trying to hook up with everybody.
Holy Spirit, not the Holy Spirit.
The whole spirit. The whole spirit comes out over him. So I think it's really important for you to figure out where your partner is, and is this becoming an issue? And if it is, what do you have to do to support him or her in this journey of, you know, substance abuse? And I think there's nothing worse than being with someone that you keep making excuses for and saying it's because he was drunk, it's because of this, it's because he's stressed out, it's because of whatever.
Or like that, like someone that you're not even sure that you want to mention the upcoming event to, someone that you're not sure you want to bring to your holiday,
because you don't know what you're gonna
your
get.
company Christmas party, like someone that you just feel like it's better to just kind of leave them behind,
like just kind of lay
and
low.
that's a red flag.
I think that's definitely really hard when you've chosen a life partner that is shifting, because sometimes, you know, when you first start dating someone, you're drinking, it's great, it's fun, it's dandy, all the good things, all the feels. But with that, you know, you start to build this history, and with that history comes resentment, and you start to throw things in each other's face, and now it's a fight. And so it's a whole lot of things. I mean, we can go on and on and on with the subject, because, you know, everyone is different when they're under the spirits. And you have to figure what kind of spirit you are really. And if you feel that you're the person that blacks out, doesn't remember things, maybe you need to give yourself a 2-drink minimum, or maybe you just don't drink and you just do mocktails.
And by the way, if you're a woman and your husband is slipping into alcoholism and he does these things in public and you feel embarrassed, go to your Bible, because even the Bible says, do not shame the drunkard. Do not publicly shame the drunkard. That is something that you wait until he is sober to have conversations. It is not something that when you see him, you know, stumbling, that you're like, oh God, he's drunk again, or oh my God, come on, like look at you, how embarrassing. Like you don't shame the drunkard. And I know it's easier said than done. It is, because as a woman and a partner, it's very frustrating. But I think lean into the word, look that up, find out, you know, if you can get a counselor, a religious figure to come in and speak to him and have a conversation. And also, ultimatums don't work with people that are full blown addicted, by the way. At that point, you can't say it's me, you know, the kids and me, or your drink.
They don't care.
They're gonna choose that $6 bottle. Like they just don't care. They're not even thinking. So just there's resources. Look for the resources. Lean into your faith.
I like that, Rachel, because the power of prayer. I mean, the power of prayer changes. I mean, power of prayer does miracles for most people. So
you're like, Lord, give him diarrhea every time he drinks.
Right? You're just like something like you got to just hone in on your faith, because I promise you that. I love that you're saying that, because I do believe that the power of prayer is so important. With also having a supporting partner, and the power of prayer is a perfect combination to probably help someone veer them in the right direction, you know. But you got to just, you know, kind of see what's going on and why they're going through this whole life-changing experience, you know.
So all right, that's all we got.
See you next time.
Cheers.